Hi ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you a few hints about the SDQ in case you're struggling. Please remember when you come to class you have to have this part for each of the questions filled out. So we did number 1 together, we did the claim, the evidence, and the reasoning. And then number 2, so number 2 is talking about capillary action, okay, and how plants use capillary actions in order to get water from the ground and the roots up all the way to the tips of their leaves. And we want to use evidence from class in the water lab. So I would think here, when we're looking at the evidence, we want to draw a diagram, and I would want to draw a diagram of the activity in the water lab where we put the straw and the small capillary tube into the colored water, and we saw the water move up in the really, really small capillary tube. And from that, we're going to describe what we believe a capillary action is and how it might work. So our reasoning is supposed to tie our evidence to our claim. Please don't forget to include some of those interesting properties of water that we also might find in our POGO. For question 3, now we're looking at mono, di, and polysaccharides, and we're trying to write chemical formulas and think about which are easiest to digest and which are the most difficult to digest. For this, we have lots of sources of evidence. So I might think in evidence, like just brainstorming, we have that carb crazy article. So we're not just writing the source, but we need to get the information. So what does the carb crazy article say versus maybe our chemistry of carbohydrates, because in that activity we also came up with some chemical formulas for each of our carbohydrates that we made as models. Okay, so I want to think about these two activities, and we also did some notes. So we did notes on carb digestion. So we want to figure out not just what the sources of information are, but what did they say. So we have to figure out what is the evidence from each of these possible sources. Okay? And then from there, we write our claim. So what's the difference? All right, so it can be a real simple answer. And then in our reasoning, we're really just trying to explain in more detail, okay, the connection between our evidence and our claim. Then 4 is asking about a friend who wants to go on the Atkins diet and not eat any more carbohydrates. And we need to figure out what recommendation we might give our friend, and we need to support it with information or evidence from class. So here I might think of evidence as being from the carb crazy activity again. So carb crazy. And then we could also look at our notes on carb digestion. So just thinking about the role of carbohydrates in the body. So these are sources of evidence, but for evidence, I would want you to maybe draw something out or write the actual data from those activities, okay? Now 5, we're thinking about diabetes now. So we're looking at our case study. And what did our case study about diabetes say about diabetes? We have a 55-year-old man. He's explained some of his symptoms. We are looking at some blood tests. So we need to figure out how we're going to diagnose this person and how we know how to diagnose this person. So I might look back at the case study and then write information about Jorge, which was a similar case. So Jorge had a similar piece of information, so you might want to look at Jorge's blood test results, his C-peptides, etc., to make a comparison to the person that we're looking at here in question 5. 6, we're now looking at the role of blood and the circulatory system in energy distribution. So we're thinking about primarily our notes on carb digestion. And we want not just the notes information, but we want to think about from our notes, like how and what is moving through, typos, through the blood stream, okay? And there were a few things moving through the bloodstream, so we want to think about what's getting transported through the bloodstream. Okay, in order for our body to use these the energy in monosaccharides. So I want you to refer to your carb notes. You might want to draw a section of the carb notes that describes the movement of carbohydrates through the bloodstream and where the monosaccharides go from the bloodstream, okay? So I hope this was helpful. For the evidence, I really do think it is best to have some quantitative data. If we're looking at numbers from Jorge's blood test and comparing them to the patient in question 5, or also to have diagrams. Diagrams are so helpful in understanding information, so try and put diagrams in the evidence. Really, my last choice for evidence would be just textual evidence. That would be like a quotation from a reading or an activity, and that would be like my third choice for evidence. So try numerical if we can find it, and here it'll be hard to find, but numerical in general, then 2 diagrams. So here I'd expect to see lots of diagrams in the evidence, and then anything from the text or notes as well. Okay? All right, let me know if you have questions.